Hey, Kevin,
Yeah, Daryl.
what do you reckon about flying?
Oi, Tess! Stop bloody bouncing your sister into the coral tree! Bloody caviar. Sorry. What were you saying?
I was just talking about flying.
Oh, right. Why?
Oh, I don't know. I just think it might be really interesting to see the world from that angle.
Wait, are you saying you want to fly?
Well, maybe?
But you're an egg.
Yeah, I know, but I could wear a helmet or something.
Oi, Tess! Stop putting the bloody decorative pebbles up your nostrils! Look, Daz, I just don't think eggs are meant to fly, mate. Ow! Tess, what did I just say?
Oopsie.
Flight simulator, where you can fly anywhere you can dream of, as long as you are not an egg. Please verify that you are not an egg.
Melanie, do you reckon I can have a go at flying your kite?
I don't know, Daryl. Isn't it illegal for eggs to fly or something?
Well, yeah, maybe. I don't know, but I wouldn't actually be flying myself. I would just be, you know, holding your
Oi,
kite,
babes.
which is-
Is this egg bothering you? Because I'll end him if he is.
No, sorry, I was just...
Oh my god, that's like so romantic.
Melanie, your kite!
Oh, wow.
All right, Humpty Dumpty. Do you know why you're here?
I tried to fly.
You try to fly. And do you know what happens when eggs try to fly?
They have fun.
This is the third time this year you've tried something like this. What's going on, Daryl? Look, you're a good guy, Daryl. I'm gonna let you off with a warning. But this is the last time, okay? You should really get some help, mate.
Egg. A vessel for housing tiny embryonic life forms that have evolved over millions of years to live in complete symbiotic harmony with one another. But can eggs fly? Yes, I think they can.
Hi folks, another month, another batch of 3D savings. This month, we've got over 1,500 marketplace products on sale for up to 70% off. Whether you're starting fresh or looking to breathe life into an old project, there are many fantastic products to choose from. Discounts end April 16th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. Have you had the chance to watch the live stream around new tools for building photoreal worlds in Unreal Engine 5.2? Dive into the buzz around these new features and more on the Unreal Engine YouTube channel. While Unreal Engine doesn't have an official presence at NAB 2023 this year, we have many partners including Blackmagic Design, Ximmetry, AR Wall, and more who will be joined by Unreal Authorized Service partners who will be exhibiting and would love for you to stop by and chat about the work they are doing in Unreal Engine. Learn more at unrealengine.com/events. Moving on to this week's Community Spotlights. Wife and husband team Emerson Cartier and Cliff Mitchell have created this colourful open-world sandbox. Play as Astor, a special odd fauna. Discover secrets, wondrous plants, craft tools and shelters, harness the elements and shape the land around you. Wishlist Odd Fauna, Secret of the Terror Beast on Steam. In their first practice scene in Unreal Engine 5, Sean Kai recreates Alec Pie's concept of Sunny Day. Watch the beautiful, energetic scene come to life through the cinematic piece. Check it out on their ArtStation. Last, but certainly not least, we have this incredibly charming environment from 3D artist Florian Ellie. With all assets made from scratch, they used many tools to make every prop in this scene fit the concept they had in mind. Check out the visual development Emerged Temple and Forest Pathway on their ArtStation. Thanks for watching this week's News and Community Spotlight.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inside Unreal, a weekly show where we learn, explore, and celebrate everything Unreal. I am your host, Tina, and I am still very, very slightly sick. So if I start coughing, I will do my best to mute myself in the meantime, but bear with me a little bit. And here today, I have on Ace, who is going to be telling us more about his incredible solo project. Keep that in mind as we go through the show today. This is all his own work, his own brainchild. It is actually insane. And I am going to try and hold back and not fangirl too bad, because it's truly an honor to be able to have you on here and talk about this project of yours. So to start us off, would you like to tell everyone just a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thanks. Well, I'm Ace, as you said. I'm 22 years old, and I'm from Spain. And I've been, solo developing this game technically for 1 year in Unreal Engine. But this idea comes from 2020. So it's been a couple of years. So yeah. And I think that's all about me. Yeah, that's me.
So humble. We could list off, incredible solo dev, plus while being a student, plus, the list goes on. But for anyone who is unfamiliar with your project, AIKODE, would you like to give kind of a brief overview of what the game is?
I will try. It's a bit complicated. So it's basically an action RPG or hack and slash game. Very fast-paced combat. But it also has a lot of typical Japanese RPG stuff, because that's my main inspiration. So you have a lot of cities, towns, a lot to explore, interact, and so yeah, there's a lot of also movement mechanics like flying. It's a single player game. It has a story, obviously, and it's probably the biggest part of the game, the story. I didn't show anything about the story, but it's the biggest part of the game. And yeah, that's mainly the game. It's inspired by other titles like Nier or Nier Automata, Devil May Cry, Final Fantasy, games like that. So yeah, I think that's people will have a clear idea of what I'm doing.
That's awesome. Well, I think to put a visual to the descriptor for it as well, I know that you brought a trailer for us to view today, right?
Yeah, it's a trailer I didn't show, so yeah, it's pretty new, only for this.
Awesome. Let's dig into that.
They say that those who sign the contract are doomed. They say that those chased by a puppet are also chased by misfortune. Personally, I don't have an opinion. I'm an AI after all. Even so, I'm required to read you the rules before you can proceed. Now, shall we start?
Wow. Goosebumps. I have actual goosebumps right now. It's so beautiful
Thanks.
and incredible. Just the work that you put into this is amazing. And I am so excited to dive into the actual development of it and really get into some of the nitty-gritty details in here as well. But before we do that, I will rein myself back a tiny bit. And I have a couple questions to start us off with today. The first one I
Yeah.
have is I would love to know kind of the story behind the game. What inspired you to actually make this project and work on it?
Well, yeah, I can explain that. It's quite interesting. So basically, I think it was my second year of university at that time. I was in uni, I was second year, so I decided to remake some of my characters, right? Because first year I was doing some characters, they were looking bad, obviously. So I decided to remake some of them, and I made Aiko, that is the protagonist. I made a remake of her, and it was looking good for that time. I mean, now it doesn't look that good, that old model, but at that time it was looking amazing for me, right? And I was like, I want to test this like in a game engine just to see it moving, because for those who do CG stuff, they know that, well, in the viewport, in any program, Blender, Maya, whatever, it runs slow. So running something in engine and moving, pressing a button or something like that and see it moving is like, whoa, that's crazy. So I was like, I want to see it moving. I want to make a character that moves, and I want to put my character in engine. So I put it in engine, and I started posting like Instagram videos, like, stories in my stories. And there was a friend who was like, I'm waiting for the game. And I was like, what game? What game are you talking about? This is not a game, this is experiment. But I was like, wait, what if I make a game? And at that point I was like, okay, I'm gonna grab the story that I have, because at first it was going to be like kind of like a show, movie or something like that, because I had a story for years. I was like, well, my plan was to make like kind of like a movie story or something like that. But then I decided to make a game because, well, I love games, obviously. And I was like, but I was scared. Yes, it was just too difficult, just the programming and everything. I was like, this is scary. I don't know if I want to do this. But that friend was like, I'm waiting for the game. And I was like, okay, I will do it. So that's actually the story. And then I started, testing things, right? And that's how everything started. Then if we progress in the story, I started everything in 2020. I was in 3 teams actually. Well, not 3 teams at the same time. It was more like one team. Then I jumped to the other team. Then I jumped to the other team, because all of them were failing, mainly because I didn't have money. And to make a game like this, well, you need money or skills or something like that. And I didn't have money, so not the money that is necessary for that, right? So I was like, we need to build something, and then we can get money. But first, we need to build something. But the people didn't want to work. So I was like, okay. There was a point that it was like the third group. I was there looking how everything was taking months, and we didn't have not even the movement. And I was like, no, it's going to take 20 years. This game is not going to. I'm going to be finished in 20 years. So yeah, no. I will do it alone. So that's when I decided to do it alone, and started 1 year ago the real game development of the game, because that was when I started, the game. So that's the story.
That is such a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm very impressed that you were able to kind of keep up the spirit to keep going with the project, because I know for a lot of people it can be a little discouraging, especially when you're in a group and it doesn't work out, to kind of feel like, well, that's the end of the project. So how did you manage to kind of just hold on to the passion for this and keep going with it?
Well, I was at that point at one moment. It was in the third group. I was looking at the project and I was like, no, this this is the end. Aiko, no, it's impossible. We don't have Aiko. That's it. Goodbye. I can't. I mean, I can do cutscenes, I can do cinematics, but I can't do a game. It's impossible for me. I was like, yeah, no. That's when I met. Actually, I explained this in a tweet like a couple of hours ago. That's when I met Stephen from Sword of Symphony. I met that guy, and I was like, and I started seeing his projects, and I was like, this is amazing. I want to talk to him, and I started talking to him. At that time, he wasn't as known as now, because now everybody knows him. But at that time, he wasn't as known, right? And I was like, I love your projects. I want to do something with you. This is amazing. I found someone who does something that I want to do, right? And then I started talking to him, and we started being friends in the end, and we have a group now for the developers like Sahid from Enenra and other people, right? Here actually in the stream. So that's when I saw that it was possible in a way. I was like, maybe it's possible. Maybe because I don't want to run away. Maybe I can do this. So that group actually motivated me to continue working in the game as a solo developer. That's so I think without them, I will actually be like thinking, no, I can do this. So it was more like knowing other people that actually did amazing stuff too, and I was like, yeah, this is it. I'm gonna do it. I was motivated at that time. So yeah.
Yeah. That is awesome. I'm really glad to hear that you were able to find that kind of support out in, the game developer community and be able to move forward with the project, because it looks absolutely incredible now, and I can't even wait. I'm literally just like every day checking your pages to see what the updates are. Like, okay, this is the newest boss fight that we're getting a glimpse at, and just really enjoying everything that you're putting into it. So I'm really glad you were able to
Thanks.
continue.
Thanks,
So I
thanks.
do think it's you specifically started with an artist background, right? A 3D artist background?
Yeah, in general 3D, generalist basically.
Yeah.
I
Awesome.
started
So
in that, and so yeah. My
that's really
main
cool.
thing is art. So what I've been learning this year, apart from improving my art, it's more like integrating everything in the engine and the programming of everything, right? So I've been learning more those aspects, the game development part, right? Integrating everything in the engine, how everything works in the engine, because obviously it's different from any other CG stuff, right? So basically, converting my art to game dev, to game art, basically. So yeah, that's what I've been doing this year. But I have my art background from 4 years ago. So I've been doing art for 4 years now. So obviously I had a lot of art background in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So it's really cool to know that everything we're going to see in the rest of the stream today is from the kind of artist background and artist
Yeah.
into developer, kind of branching out from their process, which is very fascinating. I feel like we don't get to see stuff like that very often. So, very
Yeah.
excited. All right. Well, let's start at the beginning, shall we? Where do you want to bring us into the development of iCode?
Well, I was thinking maybe we can start with I prepared a video about the progression of iCode before starting doing for the people who don't know, I want to show my progress since I started in 2020 with the art of everything, like when I was then doing programming, and then when I started doing programming and started incorporating everything and how everything evolved until this moment. So I prepared a video. It's quite long, 7 minutes or 9 minutes. It's long. So I will be talking in the video. Yes, so I can explain a bit of context. So yeah, we will see that video. Dan, if you can show the video, please. So yeah, here was the first prototype here in August 2020. It was pretty short. This is another prototype that I did in November 2020. This was in real time, my first time doing something in real time. And you can see that's the first design of AIKODE, completely different from the one now we have. This in June 2021. This was the cutscene that we seen in the beginning, but worse. It looks worse. It's like my old stuff. So obviously it doesn't look as good as now. And then now we are going to see another teaser that I did. That was the last teaser. So here now in August 2021, that was the last teaser I did before. Like, yeah, this was the last teaser, and then I started with the development of the game. Right, that was the third group. That moment, it was like, okay, now it's going to start. So this was my last teaser. Obviously, my art level was getting better and better. And then I started with the game. So first, we can see here some stuff in game, like the hair in game. I started working in the hair shaders, the hair physics, the facial movements, all of the stuff that I didn't know, and the physics of the clothes, everything. I really like details, so I want to focus a lot on everything moving and things like that, right? So I was trying to figure out the best way. Here, for example, we can see the first clip that I showed with when I started the combat. Sure, here we have another clip of the combat, so you can see that progression there. I started adding, the blood in the flowers that we saw in the trailer too, and I started adding enemies, hits. Here I started adding the first areas. It was Shibuya. There's a replica of a real place of Japan. I started adding the minimap, the basic hard stuff, right? And yeah, basically start the movement and all of that. Here we can see also, this was in summer. I started, you can see the evolution of the city now with all the NPCs and with better movement, better shaders, better lighting. So that was in summer. That's a point when I started working a lot in the game, because I wasn't in uni anymore. So I was like, yeah, this is my moment to work in the game now, right? So I started adding, these NPC systems, everything. I started working in the movement more, adding more details, like for example, the stairs going up. When you go down, you have another animation. A lot of super minimal animations just to, build everything. Added more characters, idols. There's a bit of clipping, obviously. It's old. But yeah, I started adding some, new idols, animations, everything. Adding detail, new areas. So you can see this was summer. So it was like the 3 months of summer, basically working every day in the game, adding everything I could to build everything. To the way I have it now. I also added this guy that it's called Lamy. That it's basically a robot that helps you as you are controlling this character, right? So I wanted to have that. A lot of these cool fixes, more movement integrations with the different characters. I wanted to have like more combos. I wanted to have like different like movements for every character. Like everything was different. So I was animating every character in a different completely way. I wanted to give it character to every character. So obviously all of this includes like making the animations. This is a cool mechanic too. This is like, as you can see, when you're in the shadows, you can see the bones of the character, and when you are not in the shadows, you see the skin. Like for example, there you're seeing the actual bones of the character. This is a mechanic from this city actually. It's related to this rolling haircut, that it's a quantum physics mechanics experiment. So yeah, another character that I added more physics stuff, like the hair, like the clothes, more different running animations. I wanted to, as I said, make each character as different as possible, with different weapons, different. This is really cool too. This is actually a wellness mechanic. I added like skin droplets. I even changed the physics when you are like wet. Like you can see that the physics are completely different depending on if you are like, even the hair is more down. Everything is more harder in a way. So I started adding all these tiny details and mechanics. It's a destruction of the building that I did. This was for the Titan fight that I posted earlier. This was more improvements in the NPCs, like adding new animations, like the phone. This was basically when the Matrix demo released. I basically grabbed all these systems and integrated everything with my own systems and animations. So basically, I was inspired by that and grabbed everything. Here, still, you can see that it's not perfect. There is some empty spaces. I was trying to build everything. Like you can see the empty spaces and all of that. It was improving. And we can see here another mechanic of the bike that I added to. testing physics and more stuff like the suspension. I wanted to make it like realistic, but also pretty arcade. So when you jump, because there are a lot of bumpy roads, you can actually, for example, here you have the control. You don't feel like it's going to break or something like that. So I wanted to add a smooth control, but at the same time, a realistic weight to the bike, right? And yeah, as you see a lot of animations. Here's the improvement of the combat, more combos, added blood. I also added a system for adding blood to the character. You actually are seeing how it's turning more red. Even the hair is turning more red. You can see that now the hair is like almost completely red because of the blood and all these tiny small details in the clothes and the skin, right? These are more improvements in the city. You can see the train now. You can see the people walking better. This is the a gravity mechanic that for this character that basically changes the gravity and the movement stays in there. So I wanted to make it as smooth as possible in a way, and especially nice for platforming in this part of the game. So I wanted to do almost everything, and this is a hand, but super close.
Wow.
This is when I started adding metahumans additions to my character. So I started grabbing metahumans and trying ways to incorporate everything to my characters, even if they are different. You can see the eye, for example, all this tiny detail in the skin, but keeping it optimized at the same time. So I also improved all the shaders, as you can see, the haircut shader, the cloth shader. I was trying to get to the nice CG look in the characters. This, for example, was another thing that I did is basically a painterly style for this part of the game. It changes completely. You can see the river and everything's more like a painting. So I wasn't trying this procedural stuff, and not procedural, like this post-processing stuff, right? Here I improved the movement, added like flying mechanics, and basically added like everything. I wanted to make everything as smoothly as possible in terms of the movement. So here, for example, you can see that in the change direction system. I also added that. A lot of tiny details in the animations and everything. I just wanted to make everything as smooth as possible and with a lot of animations. That's obviously a problem because you need to animate a lot. This is another place of the game. This is when I started doing more cities and more areas of the game. I also added birds. This a comparison between an old cutscene and a new cutscene with improvements in the haircuts. I wanted to add ambient occlusion, improving the shaders, the eyes, the physics to make every strand move. I wanted to improve the hair a lot in this part. For example, here you can see how every strand of the hair in this character is moving completely, each strand. So I wanted to. This obviously is not groom hair; it's haircuts. So I wanted to achieve all of that in an optimized way. These improvements in the flying system again, and in the movement. Also, I was working on landscapes. You can also see the birds again that I added. Yeah, basically adding more and more stuff like the fog cards to give a nice atmosphere. I was basically trying to improve my lighting and everything in general. It's another city of the game. A lot of verticality. That's why I added the flying system basically, because I wanted to have super vertical cities, kind of similar to games like Gravity Rush. So I wanted to, this is another city. As you can see, there are a lot of different cities and different architectures and styles. I wanted to have a game where everything looks different all the time, like the lighting, the post-processing, the everything. Like I even changed the art style in one moment. So yeah, here's a small video just showcasing the saving and loading system, because I also working in these things, like also the new UI. You can see how I even changed the hair because it loads like the customization system. So it has a customization too and all of this. This is one of the bosses. This is one of the last boss. Modeling the boss. This one is the last one I posted, right? So yeah, here I was working more in bosses like the destruction that you see earlier, and unifying everything in a way to make it everything, as good as possible. So yeah, this is actually the end of the video. I've talked a lot, but yeah, this is the progression of the game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is just so. How much time was that, would you say, from the start of development to now?
So the first part of the video, like the first seconds that I show, like these cutscenes, that was from 2020 to 2021, and from that moment, it's when I started testing things. So it was basically 1 year of development. All the things that you have seen in the engine, it was like 1 year of development basically. Yeah, I actually posted a video in Twitter saying 9 months of development, because at that time was now 9 months. But if we count it now, it's like 1 year and a bit more maybe. But yeah, it was 1 year of development in Unreal Engine. All of what you've seen, yeah.
Insane. That is an actually insane amount of progress to make in a year by yourself. I mean, I'm gonna sound like a broken record by the end of this by just repeating the fact that you're a solo dev over and over. But I think it's so important to highlight that that was a year of solo development. Insane.
Yeah. It's thanks. I actually, it's interesting. I didn't know I could do all of that. But most of the stuff that when I decided to go strong was in summer. I was like, I want to try in this summer to do everything I can. I want to see how much I can do. It was more like a test for me, because I always had the uni, and uni was always there, exams, projects, whatever. I had a lot of things in the uni, so it was taking me a lot of time. And I also had, at that time in the 3rd year, I had some freelance work. So it was uni plus freelance work plus the project. And I was like, yeah, I can work on this. So it was in summer when I decided to, I'm going to go ahead and do work every day, every hour, like to the maximum. I want just to test how much I can do. So that way I will know if I could really do this alone, or, well, if it will take me 20 years. So I decided to do all of that. And when I started seeing that I was adding characters, full cities, different animations, finished like complete movements, and when I was seeing that the game was working, I was like, maybe I can do it. I mean, maybe not in 1 year, but maybe I can do it in 2 years. If I keep the progress like this, if I work full time on this, I could probably finish it, because that was more like a test for me, for seeing how much I can do, because I was also doing NPCs. When I saw that I could actually do with my methods 300 NPCs in 1 month, I was like, okay, if I can do 300 characters in a month, this means I can actually make this game, because I can actually do it. Because I was scared of that, because I didn't know. I was like, I think I can do it, but I never did it. So I was like, maybe I need to try it first. And then I saw it with my own eyes, and I was like, yeah, I don't need any more proof. I can do it. But all of this is thanks also to the Unreal tools, as I say, because even Metahumans, even if the characters are not Metahumans style, I incorporated the Metahumans entirely into my workflow to fasten everything, to make everything more faster, to make everything much quicker. So in a way, thanks to all these Unreal tools, I was able to do this. I don't think like if I did this from scratch completely, when I started, I was doing everything from scratch, like every character and everything. I think I couldn't do it as fast as now. So I think it's also because Unreal is, well, you have a lot of things apart from the engine itself, a lot of external things. So it's just more easier to build something faster.
Yeah. It's a perfect partnership, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
We give you the tools so you can make something absolutely insane with them. It's perfect. It works out. I would love to know how you kind of started getting into the more technical developer parts of this project, because since you did start from the artist side, how did you initially begin to get into some of those kind of other hats that you would have to put on, like for blueprinting or coding or anything like that? What was that initial process like?
Well, it was scary. At first I was searching for programmers, as I said, but I was like, okay, I'm gonna do just a quick movement, because, well, the thing with Blueprint is that it's pretty, well, it's nodes basically. And artists, well, work with nodes all the time. If you go to whatever, like Mari or even Blender, Houdini, it's just a tree. It's basically a tree of boxes, and it's basically the same thing in the end. It's a spaghetti. So as an artist, I actually, I actually did I actually understood what I was kind of doing because it was familiar to me in a way, right?
Yeah.
So I started doing some basic things, like I was started doing the movement basically. So yeah, running, walking. I started in the jumping, the dashing, all of that thing. I started, playing some things in the anim graph, combining things, testing different methods. So the first time was actually, not gonna lie, it was pretty easy in a way. I didn't feel like I thought it was going to be like worse in a way. I thought it was going to be like hell or something, but no, it was actually quite nicely. It was actually not as difficult as I thought. Obviously, it gets complicated with the more you do. Basically, when start adding more complex stuff, right? For example, when I decided to incorporate, the Masa AI system, from the Matrix demo, I was like, yeah, this looks amazing. I want to add this. And I started seeing the system. I was like, I don't understand anything. But I don't understand anything. Like, what is this assorted fragments? What is this? What is going on? I don't understand anything. And there are no videos. There are no information. Like, I was like, well, I have this amazing system for free, but I don't know how to use it. So I'm just going to reverse engineer everything and try to understand what is going on and just build my own system using this Mass AI system. So that's what I did, for example. But I remember that took me like a whole week of work because it was like I didn't understood anything. And when I say a whole week, maybe some people are like, well, that's not that much. Well, yeah, but for me it's a lot because normally it's like, okay, I finish a character in one day, I continue with the other day. It's like that. My workflow is one day, one character. That's finished. Okay, perfect. Continue. So 1 week for me was actually like 2 years for someone,
that was a time
newbie,
commitment. Yeah.
basically. Yeah, it was like a lot, and I was not seeing improvement. Like everything was moving wrongly. I didn't understand what it was going on. So for me, that week was one of the biggest times when I was working on something. And again, even if I'm an artist, I'm more like a character artist. So dealing with areas, dealing with creatures, even that's something that is really hard for me because in the end, I'm a generalist, but I'm not a designer. Like I'm not a concept artist. I'm not actually a concept artist. So I basically, when I do something, I just try and try and try. And I basically, most of the cities that you have seen in the video, I actually did those cities like 5 times. I started that city, finished the city, and I was like, no, this doesn't look good. Repeat it. And I started from scratch. I didn't reuse anything. I was like, no, repeat it from scratch. And it was like that workflow. So it took me like probably months to finish even the creatures or the cities in the way that you see it now. So I actually, most of the time that I was showing, the small updates, like the movement and all of that, I was working at the same time in the big stuff, but I didn't want to show anything because I was feeling like it wasn't good. So I was like, I'm gonna keep working until I have something. And now you're seeing all this work suddenly out of nowhere, like the bosses, the cities, but it appears out of nowhere. But it's actually been like 1 year of development because those things I was working alongside with the movement and all these small updates, right? I was working basically in all of that at the same time. That's my way of working too. You already seen in the video that I go from one place to another. Like I'm doing a character and suddenly I'm doing the movement or something like that. It's a bit chaotic. It's not the best way if you're in a team, probably. But as I'm solo, well, I'm like working in the city. I'm like, no, I'm tired. Go to another city. And then we'll continue with the city tomorrow or something, right? Because if not, I get like burned out in a way that I don't like. Like I actually don't want to keep working in the same thing for 1 week. It's too much. I'm gonna do it badly. It's not going to look good. And so basically, I jump from one thing to another. But in the end, I finish everything. It's just my way of working is more like jump here, and then when I have it finished, it's when I post it. If not, I don't usually post the stuff. I'm like more like, no, I don't like to work. I don't like to post work in progress stuff. Even this work in progress stuff, more of it look at finish it because it was more like it's work in progress. It's more like there is some errors in there, but it's almost finished. So work in progress. It's not actually, you can see that it's not. It's obviously I don't actually show the actual real process because when I started, like for example, the Titan battle, it looked really bad. It looked really bad. I was like, it was awful. So this work in progress is more like, yeah, work in progress 80%, something like that.
Sure.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. And I mean, if it works for you, everyone's individual workflows is different. So I think that's
absolutely
probably good for other indies to hear that, if their process is different than maybe what is considered the traditional process, it doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong. Whatever gets the game done is right,
Yeah. My teachers actually were like, I don't understand your workflow. I don't understand what you're doing. You are too chaotic. And I'm like, you are too chaotic. You aren't. No, you can work in a team. And I'm like, yeah, I know. That's why I'm working solo, because I can't work in a team. I actually slower, which is funny, right? Because how are you going to be slower in a team? I don't know, but it's true. It's like, it's weird, but it's true. If I'm working in a team, I need someone like me, like same chaotic energy. If not, it's not going to work. I know. So yeah.
Understandable.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, I know that there was some stuff that we're going to dive into in Engine today, right? So do we want to
there's some
get
stuff.
started on that?
Yeah, a lot of stuff. Let me go ahead. I'm going to put the screen here. Let me prepare everything. I don't know where to start, so I'm going to be jumping from one thing to another.
That's okay.
So
we just
give me a second. I'm
established
going to share.
the chaos nature of it, so
chaos nature. So it's going to be like that. The stream is going to be quite chaotic. So sorry for everyone. Sorry. Yeah.
It's okay. It's posted as a VOD later. They can skip around and rewatch. It'll be fine.
Yeah, nice. So yeah, for example, here, first I want to show, for example, the NPC system that I was talking about. As you can see, this is actually using the mass AI system that I was talking about. It's basically the same thing as Matrix, just more chaotic. Because I wanted to make like this city really like the real place. Like I wanted to make like real, in a way, you can move everywhere. So all the NPCs are going to move everywhere. So it's like the city, right? And basically, if I go here in the spawner, right? For example, I have 300 NPCs just for testing. Let's simulate this. Hopefully it won't crash. We have an error. We ignore that. Sorry for that. A lot of things that I'm changing and deleting. So it's loading. Hopefully it doesn't crash.
We'll see.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, it's starting to appear in the NPC. See? They appear. And there we have it. So as you can see, those are basically the NPCs. It's a bit slower basically because I'm sharing the screen, so I'm not so used, but it's getting better. But yeah, basically it's a bit slower. I don't know why. It's share like the Discord sharing basically. So let me reduce a bit these NPCs. Also, this very if you play the game. So sorry for that. Let me put it like 200. We can actually see it a bit faster. It's a bit faster. I don't know. But yeah, you can see basically that it's spawning the NPCs like the same as the Matrix demo, but it's my own NPC, so I didn't use Metahumans in this case. I was basically trying to create all these different characters with Metahumans. So my workflow was pretty similar to what you do in Metahumans. Is basically you go to Metahumans, you import your face to Metahuman character, right? So you basically sculpt a face, you import it as a metahuman, you basically gain all these features that is super nice, like the UVs, the great topology, the textures, shaders, and all this stuff, nice. And then if you have NPCs, you can basically, if you have a lot of faces of your own style, you can basically merge the faces and sculpt inside of metahumans different faces. So you can make like 300 different faces just for your NPCs, basically. So that's the way I built all these NPCs in a faster way. But at the same time, I needed to do like the hair and the clothes. Sometimes I use it like some metahuman hair and change it a bit, but it was obviously, as I'm using haircuts, I try to optimize in my own way. So yeah, it was a bit. The hard part is basically doing the clothes and the hair, but you can use the other stuff from metahumans to build it faster, especially for faces, body, all this type of stuff. really useful. So that's the way I
Yeah.
build the NPCs, and then it's just using the mass AI system. I'm not going to go into detail about this because it's really complex, but basically I built my own system that it's randomized, that is created from the other system. So let me go ahead and basically okay, let me check this backup thing. Everything is a bit messy. Basically,
No
if
worries.
this opens, loading. I'm going to show you really quickly, so you can actually see what I'm doing. It's not finished anyway, but not finished, but it's going to be there. Like, okay, so it's in the construction script, I think. Okay, yeah. So basically, it's a bit big. The matrix demo is better, but I didn't understand anything, so I decided to do it my own way, right? Basically, so it's not as organized in a way, but I tried to make it organized. So this is a test basically, and as you can see, first it detects the genders, then it changes the different ages, then it basically detects the color of the clothes, changes the clothes, changes the pattern of the clothes, changes the hair color, and depending on the age, you can see how the hair is different. For example, here you have these 3 hairs, but here you have more like different types of hair, like hair gray, because you can be older and you have the percentage of being of having this gray hair if you're older, kind of. So that's the way I basically managed to make every NPC makes sense, so we don't have weird things going on in the way of having, uh, uh, a baby with a suitcase. You know what I mean, right? So I wanted to have like something that makes sense. So if, for example, you're a man with a suite, maybe you will have a suitcase, right? A briefcase, right? And maybe if you're a teen, you are texting in the phone or something like that. So basically, the system detects all of this and just change the animations in runtime, and then spawns the NPCs in every place and changes the color. For example, if you're a teen, maybe you can have, or you just have different hair color or whatever, right? So basically, I build it in a way that makes sense. So it's a bit, yeah, it's a bit like recreated in a way, right? But it
Right.
works nicely. Oops, wait a second. I'm gonna put the other the other audio thing before continuing, because give me a second. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for a second. So yeah, 1 second.
Yeah, no worries.
Sorry.
It is
Okay.
honestly shameful the amount of times that I have not charged my headphones before a stream. So this is a glimpse into one of my own personal demons as well. So this is your reminder, chat. If you haven't
1
charged your
second, sorry.
headphones today, do so.
Sorry. Yeah, it's for that. Let me.
Okay. I cannot hear your mic.
Now it's working. Sorry for that.
There we
My
go.
things that happen.
No worries.
Things that happen.
I was
Okay, gonna reshare my screen now, Dan. Sorry for that. It was unexpected. Yeah.
absolutely no worries. I was letting everyone know while you were
Okay.
changing out that I have so many times not charged my own headphones before a stream and been like, hurriedly trying to find cords and get stuff plugged in. So
yeah, exactly. So yeah, well, this was just a quick thing for the NPCs, but now I want to show more interesting stuff. First of all, I want to show you something I did for optimization that I think it's really nice for the cities, and it's something also related to the building destruction that we saw earlier. So I want to show a bit more in depth how I did all of this, right? So for example, we're in this city, and I want to show you, for example, these rotating objects that you have right here, for example, right? You have these rotating objects. Basically, you have this year, you have these things, And obviously, if you will, in this city, there are going to be a lot of these rotating gears and things, right? And obviously, you don't want to have these objects as, I mean, you could, if you are a developer, you're thinking, okay, maybe we can do it in different ways. We have the rotation component in the blueprints. Yeah, that's a way. It's a bit expensive. Not as expensive as an event tick, for example. Probably it's better to use a rotation component, right? You can also use an event, call it the begin play, then look an event or do something weird, or maybe call a timer or a timeline. I don't know. There are millions of ways, but all of them are expensive in a way, right? All of them are expensive if you have thousands of these objects. And the city has thousands of these rotating objects all the time. So I was like, I need to make these objects rotate all the time. I don't want to just click it, interact, and it rotates. No, I want running all the time the rotation. So I started looking, and basically I discovered, well, you can do this with shaders, with the ball position offset, basically. The problem is that videos don't explain this really well. I mean, they explain the basic thing, but they don't explain it really well. So basically, if I go here, right, I'm gonna duplicate this object. I'm gonna grab it and I'm gonna rotate it. Now, as you can see, I can rotate the object and it's keeping the axis and everything. So I can position this wherever I want, and I can basically move it however I want, right? If I go to the object, you can see that it's a static mesh. It's not even a skeletal mesh. There is no, obviously, if you use skeletal meshes, it's going to get expensive. You don't want to have millions of skeletal meshes. So if I go to the shader, here, the years one, right? I'm gonna try to keep this organized. Okay, so if I go here, you can see I have some things right here. Basically, I can change the rotation speed of this thing really quick. Like, for example, put it in 1, I'm going to start rotating, 3, 12, put it in a slow motion. Yeah, you can have control of that with the shader, right? And then you can also change the axis where it's rotating, right? For example, the blue one will be the z-axis, for example. And the green and the red one will be the x-axis, right? You just need to, well, if you want to know that, you have the axis here, basically. Red, green, blue. So basically that's how you know where it's rotating, right? The thing is, the problem with the videos that explain this thing is that they are just not completely explained. They don't explain everything. So what they do is this thing. They do this thing. No, don't do this. I actually prepared this for this stream because I want people to actually do it right. So basically what they do is connect this thing here. They don't plug anything to the normal, and they basically just grab this thing, connect it here, and then the time thing, right? They connect it like this. And let me show what happens if you do this with complex objects, not with a cube. First of all, you're starting seeing that it is not rotating correctly. Because if you do this method like this, you need to put it like in 0 degrees or 90, or basically completely in a line. If you start rotating, boom, it looks no, it is not working correctly. And the other thing that you are noticing is that the normals look completely wrong. If I go here, you're going to see how this is suddenly is shining, and suddenly is black. Like the shadows are not making any sense. So if you want to do this, and I recommend doing this if you want to optimize your game, and if your objects don't require like complex collisions and things like this, if you want to keep it like more like an aesthetic thing, like me, right? I recommend doing what I'm doing here. So I'm gonna just show it real quick. I'm not gonna explain everything, but basically, yeah, this thing. So basically, here you have it. Take a screenshot or whatever. I don't care. I'm just giving this your knowledge for free. So basically, here you have it, everything. So this is all you need. Basically, this is for the normals. If you plug this, basically the normals are going to rotate correctly, and you're not going to have the weird shadows going on. And this thing right here is essential, the transform vector. You need to put it in local to wall space, basically. And then you will be able to rotate the object like nicely. That's it. Yeah, you can see, nice. And the shadows are looking right. You see the shadows are perfect. There's no weird things going on. So this is pretty useful. I would recommend, like, yeah, yes, I'm just going to move this so you can see it. Now you can go back and copy. So yeah, basically this is really important, because this the basic thing that I want to explain, to continue explaining what I'm doing this in a more complex stuff, right? So basically, this is really nice. This is also how it works, like the movement of the trees and the grass, and everything related to all of that. It's basically runs in the shader, so you don't need to. It's not as expensive as other things, because everything is running in the shader, so you can have hundreds of these objects without losing performance, which is great. The only bad side or the downside is that, well, the collision is not going to rotate. But if we have this thing, for example, this year, I don't care about the collision not rotating, because basically the collision can be cylinder. That's it. I mean, it's not realistic, because if you stay in the year, you're not going to rotate with the year. The performance is better. So we are losing a bit of detail or realism, but we are gaining the possibility of adding these objects and making a city full of years. It's amazing. It's really amazing. It's something that you should do if you have something like this. Obviously, this depends a lot in your game. So I'm not saying you should do this for all your games. But if you have something like this, and if you want to do it, just copy that and it's going to work. This works from Unreal Engine 5. I don't know if it works in Unreal Engine 4. I didn't test it, but I think it will work. I just don't know. So yeah, basically, now that I explained this, I want to explain something more complex using also this method, right? And for that, I'm going to go to another place. I'm going to go to, well, I need to find the place. It's in World, I think. Give me a second. I need to find the place real quick. World. Let me make this a bit bigger. Okay, let's go to Destructible, I think. I have a lot of folders, so sorry for that.
No worries.
Sorry for that. Maps. Yeah. Well, it's kind of organized in a way. So that's cool. Okay,
You
don't
know
say
where
this.
everything is, and that's what matters.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it's loading. Let's wait a bit again. So now we're going to show you the destruction of the building, because that building is quite complex, and you could do that probably with chaos physics. Yeah, maybe. It will be a bit expensive again. So I don't know if you want to do it like that. So yeah, this is the Titan scene, right? And I'm just going to simulate it, just so we can see what it happens, right? I'm gonna say something, even if the destruction of the building looks good. It's not the final one, so it's not perfect. So it's just a work in progress, just so we can understand what is going on behind it. I need to resimulate everything. So yeah, this is just a work in progress. We don't want to basically basically what it's going to happen is this building that looks quite decent is going to be destroyed by when it reaches like when it detects that with an anim notify. I can go explain that later, but it's basically an anim notify, and then basically it destroys the entire building, as you can see. And it's a fairly complex destruction. You can see all these small pieces and everything. You can see, if I move up there, well, you can see that there's a lot of stuff in there, right? So there's a lot of, it's a really complex destruction. So let me go ahead and just explain what is going on here. Like, I want to show the actor and explain a bit what is this, because obviously if you want to have this with chaos physics, you can have it, but I tried with this building and it was lagging like for 3 seconds, and it was destroying and it was lagging, and everything was at 3 FPS. Obviously, which makes sense, because obviously this is not, chaos physics is not meant by that. It's meant for small objects or buildings that you can destroy with a gun, for example, and it starts falling to pieces, but not the entire building out of nowhere, destroying everything and moving around and colliding with each piece and creating. Obviously not. You don't want to do that. And you might be thinking, okay, I can simulate this in other program like Blender and export this as an animation. You can do that, but it's an skeletal mesh. Skeletal meshes are bad. They are not bad, but expensive again. It's not the same as a static mesh. and the animation is going to be like quite big. So prepare for having like, if you want to have this all destructible buildings like me, I want all the buildings are destructible. If you want to have that with all the buildings, well, the game is going to be like 70 gigabytes just for that. So yeah, if you if you want that, okay, that's cool. But I'm going to show a better method. So basically, I go to the viewport, and it's so far away. So let me get closer. Basically, what I have is two pieces of the building, right? In my case, I didn't want to have the full building destructible because it didn't make sense. So just to optimize, I only separated the building into two parts. That way I can have like the destructible part and not the non-destructible part, basically. But if you want to have the full building like destructible, you can. It's just, I didn't need it, so I'm not gonna waste time doing the entire building. So I have this part. I have these the smoke particles. We don't care about that. It's just to add more detail to the simulation and everything. Just Niagara particles, nothing crazy. And the collision one, it's called collision, but we can ignore the name. It's just a random name that I put. It's not because it's a collision. And so basically, this is the low part of the building. It is not destructible, but this is destructible. And this is a static mesh, as you can see. And I can click it. And you're going to see a lot of these materials are called BAT, gray squares, BAT, windows, BAT, whatever. All of them are parents of this one that it's called Susaya Master. That Susaya is the name of the building, so we can ignore that name. And this is the building, right? This is the building. This is the shader, the main shader. All are instances of this shader. And why I want to do that? Well, basically, because this is going to be a shader that is going to be dynamic, right? We want to be dynamic. But if I make it like, I have a lot of shaders, as you've seen. This is a lot of shaders. So I don't, obviously, I don't want to make a dynamic instance of each one of these. It will be time consuming if I want to do that for every building. For example, I was doing that. I actually tested all of this. This is what you get. You don't want this. This is too much. It's too time consuming to do this for each building. And then you make a change and you need to change the entire shader. No, this is not good. This is not working. And then you make an array. No, you don't want to do this. This is not good. So what I did is basically a global scalar parameter that it's called frame. And this frame, it's inside the master, right? I go inside the master. Oops. You can see that we have this frame there in the display frame override, basically. So I'm overriding the frame with this value. Pretty simple. Now I'm going to show you what it's going on in the shader, right? So I'm going to click this auto playback. This is going to deactivate my whole system, but just so you can see what is going on. Deactivate the auto playback, and I'm gonna make it like so we can see both of them, kinda. Yes, so we can see everything. Yeah, the scale is a bit off, but we are going to get closer to that. So now you're seeing that it's autoplay. It's doing like the auto playback thing. Oops. Okay, nice. Now I see. Yeah, now we are seeing like the destruction of the building here, right? And you can see all these small pieces, all these things falling apart. You can see the collision is perfect. Everything is colliding with the floor. You're not seeing things falling off. This is basically a simulation from Houdini. That's why it looks like solid in terms of collisions and everything. These are simulation entirely made in Houdini, but exported not as an animation, but as textures, which is pretty weird because you will be wondering how. Well, you have these two textures basically. And if I go ahead, you can see that these textures are basically, I'm gonna be honest, I don't understand how this is done because I'm not a genius. So this is made by Houdini. They discovered this and Unreal integrated this with Houdini in here. You have a tutorial explaining all of this by Houdini with the different methods. But what I understand is basically each pixel is a color, obviously, and each color is a vector, right? RGB, XYZ. It's a vector, so you are basically detecting the position with each pixel of the simulation and just converting those colors to numerical values and resimulating everything. Well, resimulating, no, playing the simulation in Unreal. And same with the rotation. So you need these two textures. This is pretty cool because these textures are not that big in terms of size, not compared to an animation. So you are having this simulation without having a animation that is like 7 gigabytes or something like that, right? You can even, that's the cool part, you can even change, as you can see here, the playback speed. So if I put this in 1, this shader is going to interpolate the actual movements of the destruction. So it's not going to feel choppy. It's going to feel like a smooth, like slow motion. You can change the speed. You don't need to resimulate. You can change the speed with this shader. It's amazing. There's a tutorial about Houdini. If you're interested, you just need to put vertex animation textures, Houdini, Unreal, and that's it. It appears. There are 4 tutorials. One is for destructions, one is for liquids, one is for cloth, and one is for particles. So you can actually use these methods with cloth or liquid. You can have the best realistic liquid simulation. The bad side of this is that it's pre-baked, but you can make it interactable too. You can make it interactable with other methods about you. Yes, there is a lot of information about this. This is not like a secret gem. It's just people don't talk about it, but it's intuitive. So there's actually a way to make, for example, imagine that you have a gun and you want to shoot a building and destroy parts of the building individually. You can do this with this method. Cool part, it's optimized. It's pre-baked, yeah, but it's optimized. You can have super realistic simulations running in-game, and everything is on the shader, which is perfect. And then you can change the speed, do cool effects, and whatever you want. So the cool part of this playback speed is that as you can interpolate the frame rate, you can also use timelines for this. That's what I'm doing basically. Here, I'm using a timeline to play the animation, as you can see in the frame. So you can use timelines in your own blueprint to basically control the simulation however you want. You can do weird thing like make it fast, then slow, then fast, then you can do whatever you want. It's a really useful method. And you can also use this on characters. For example, imagine you have the crowd system and you want to make a character that is far away. You don't want to have skeletal meshes all the time. So if it's far away, you can just change that to a static mesh with animations. That's actually what it does, the Matrix demo. If you look at the in-depth of that, it's basically changing those meshes to static meshes with animations. But they are far away, so you don't notice. But you can see the person far away, so you see a super big crowd. But everything is simulated with these textures, which is amazing. So definitely, if you're interested in optimizing things, you should take a look at this. It's amazing and it's really useful. And as I said, it's once you understand how to do it, it's pretty easy. It gets a bit difficult at the start, but it's not recommended for newbies. But I was a newbie when I started, so you can do it too. So if I could do it, you can do it. So yeah, that's basically how I did the building, for example. And the way how it's called is basically an anim notify. It detects a trace with the hand, and basically when it detects, it destroys the building. It's pretty simple. I'm not going to go into details about that, but that depends how you want to do it. For my game with this Titan, basically it detects the hands and where it's positioning, and I called an anim notify when the animation is there. It detects if there is a building. If there is a building, destroy the building, basically. It's just as easy as that. Then you play the timeline, destroy it, change everything. You can then change to a collisions. You can do however you want. This is just an intro to that, right? So I think that's pretty interesting, and you should definitely use it. Now I have other stuff that it's interesting too. This is pretty cool, but I have more stuff. So we can see like the hair because hair is interesting. Hair is interesting because a lot of people ask how I'm doing like simulations and things like that inside Engine, right? So for example, I have this character. We're going to start with this one because, well, the pose is a bit it's a bit weird, but who cares? Like we want to see that's just the face. So let me put this a bit closer. Let me reduce the speed because this is a bit fast. Okay, so we want this to be a bit closer, and just gonna simulate this so we can see what is going on, right? Simulate. So yeah, we can see that the hair is moving, and you can see every strand moving individually. These are haircuts. This is not like a shade. Like this is not like groom hair, obviously. So there are haircuts with basically bones, right? So what it's moving right now, it's not a closed simulation or something like that. It's poorly bones, a lot of bones, because, well, it's not the most optimized way, I guess, but it was really important to me to make like the cloth and everything move the way I wanted, like in a flowy way, right? So basically what I'm using for these things, for all the simulations, that includes like cloth, other body simulations, hair simulations, everything is unified with the same physics, and it's basically a plugin that it's free, that it's called Kawaii Physics. Basically, it's a plugin that is free. You can download it in GitHub, and it's updated with every engine. I actually tested all of this. It's pretty similar to running dynamics of Unreal, but it's easier to set up for newbies. So I recommend, I recommend trying everything, like, because I try like the rigid bodies, I try like the anim dynamics, I tried the cloth system of Unreal, I tried everything. And I was like, I need something that is performance easy in terms of performance, but it also looks like flowy or whatever. So I was testing a lot of things, and in the end, with all the tests that I did, I decided to use Kawaii Physics. It's easy to set up for me because I have a lot of characters, so I needed something that is plug and play, because if not, it's going to be crazy. So let me show you what it is basically. But as I said, it's pretty simple to find. It's not that hard. But I recommend everyone to use it. So basically, here we have it. It's this thing so you have the anim graph, and the last thing you put is this thing for each physics that you want. For example, one for the hair, one for the clothes, one for the whatever you want. So as you can see, it's just a node. This is also the way I set up everything. So basically, as you can see, I have a bone that is called hair root, and inside this bone you can see all the hairs, right? Each strand of the hair. So basically, I call it hair root, and it's basically detecting all the hairs inside this hair root, which is pretty nice because it basically detects everything. So cool thing about this plugin that I find super interesting is the fact that you can actually have different pieces of, like different collisions. So you can have one for the hair. Imagine that you want to have an amazing collision with the fingers when the character touches the hair, and you want to have minimal collision with the fingers, but then you don't want to have that minimal collision for the fingers when you are in the clothes, and you just want to have a sphere in the hand. Well, you can do that. You don't need to have it's not limited to just one collision. You can use the same one, or you can basically use different ones. I prefer to use different ones. I find it more interesting. Then you have this thing, and basically you can change the damping, the stiffness, the radius of the bones, the wall damping rotation for when you're rotating to make it more realistic. For example, imagine that you don't want to make it realistic. You don't want to stay in the same place. You can do that, which is pretty nice. So basically, you can also control the gravity. Imagine that you don't want to have gravity at all, or maybe you want to have a bit of gravity for a ponytail or something like that. You can control all of that with all of this. And there are more things here, even for the wind. You can control the wind scale with the Unreal wind. It's set up with Unreal wind, so it's perfect. So you just need to this wind is amazing. So it's just the Unreal wind, the normal wind directional source. It just works with the plugin. So you just click this, and you can go crazy. It works. It's amazing. You don't need to do anything else. It's easy to use, super fast. You can control the speed, the strength, and it's unified with that, which is amazing, obviously. And as I'm saying, it's nothing super complex. You just plug this, and there are a lot of options. You can exclude bones. You can add curves for making the stiffness like start in a way, end in another way. There are a lot of things here. Obviously, I'm not going to go into detail, but it's really interesting to go ahead and try it, see if it works for you, and if it works, then you have it, all the physics for everything. You can also combine it with Unreal physics. Obviously, it's up to you. In the end, everyone does things differently. Sometimes people build their own physics system. So in the end, it depends on your game, right? But this worked perfectly for my game because I have a lot of acrobatic things, and I have a lot of movements that are not realistic. So when I'm jumping and double jumping and third jumping, I want the characters to stay I don't want the hair going crazy or the cloth is going crazy. So this kind of maintains the shape of the clothes and the hair, which is good because if I want this hair, I want to maintain the shape of this hair. I don't want to go down or something like that. For example, with cloth physics, it will go down, for example. So I want to maintain the shape and this plugin allows you to do that too. So really useful. And as I said, I'm using this plugin even for example, another use completely different. Let me open a new scene quick, just to show you this, because this is quite interesting. For example, for the dragon snake thing. Yeah, let me go ahead and find this guy right here. I'm going to disable, like, oops, it's super big. It's super big. Let me okay, this guy is big. Yeah, it's quite big. Let me also disable some things here. Okay, it's disabled. The animation perfect. So I have a lot of different things here. You can see I have one for the body. I have one for the cables of the guy. I have some for the wings. Different ones for each one. You can see that this can get really complicated once you start adding things to your stuff, right? But it's easy to use. So basically, if I simulate this, I'm going to show you that basically I can grab this guy, and if wait, if I have all this smoke going on. Give me a second. I will disable like the atmosphere and everything, just so we can. No, I want to keep. Okay, yeah. Let me disable this one, maybe. Yeah, I just want to show and the other ways you can use it. Basically, look at this. For example, you can see how the guy is adapting to with the physics basically of the body and everything. Looks like this kind of procedural movement. You can achieve things like this with the actual physics if you set up everything correctly, right? Which is quite simple to use, and it's, as I say, you can use it not only for physics but also for things like this. And as I'm saying, it's quite nice because that way you can have this type of procedural movement. So it works for almost a lot of things, not only for clothes, hair, or whatever. It works for the cool thing about this system is that it's easy to set up, and it's also quite, I'm gonna say fake, but it's not really fake. It's just it's not as expensive as rigid bodies. Rigid bodies are more realistic, therefore a bit more expensive. This is more like fake sway physics. So it's not. It has disadvantages too, because if you want something super realistic, I'm gonna go ahead and use the cloth system of Unreal. It's amazing. Or use the rigid bodies if you want something purely realistic. But for example, imagine my gravity system with something realistic. It's going to fall off everything. The dress is going to be on top. It's going to be horrible. I don't want that. Obviously, this depends a lot on your game, and so sometimes I sacrifice realism for aesthetically pleasing things. So obviously, this works perfect with what I want. I can control all of that. Another cool thing, and I'm gonna combine this with the other things. It's you can basically let me go ahead and go to the character. I have a lot of things. This one, because I was testing things right here, right? And I basically let me go ahead and okay, yeah, it's a bit messy here. Let's ignore all of that. Yeah, you can see here that I basically created variables for this, like float variables, instead of putting the value there. And why I'm doing that, you can see that I also exposed this to cinematics. Well, you can actually control these values for each shot in a cutscene. So normally in CG stuff, in terms of art, you normally bake the hair simulations and the cloth simulations every time. Like for every shot, it's a different physics, it's different values, it's different simulations. So I was trying to get something similar, but in Unreal, because I wanted to make like every cutscene like as nice as possible. So using this, you can also see that I have the wind vector. I have like the gravity in some parts. I expose the values that I want. And I basically, now I'm going to open a cutscene, and you're going to see how this works, because I'm changing in every shot how I handle like the physics in every shot, which makes everything look better, obviously, because that way you don't have weird shots where you are seeing like the cutscene and you are seeing, oh no, this looks weird. This looks like, I don't know,
right?
This doesn't make any sense or something. Yeah, it doesn't look aesthetically pleasing or something like that, because you are leaving the physics to the engine. You're leaving like, yeah, do your stuff. I'm not gonna review anything. You do your stuff, and it's like, I mean, it's good, but you need some hand. You need to touch it, things, right? So I'm gonna show a cutscene where I use this, for example. I'm going to map, and it's not crashing. It is awesome. It's not crashing, which is nice. Okay, so for example here, let me go ahead and, for example here, I have this cutscene, right? And the physics here, if I go ahead and go to this shot, if I, what it is, well, apparently I'm not seeing the things here. There is a point where I'm changing, obviously, the physics, but I don't know now what it is. Okay, here. Okay, you can see that I basically grabbed the animation. Let's ignore these typos. You can see that I basically I have this blueprint here, and I have these values here, and you can see how I'm animating those values in a smoothly way, right? So basically, the physics I have here are not the same that I have in the other place. When I'm here, I basically want to have these flowy winds, and to make this, basically, I wanted to have like, I needed to reduce the physics, because if I keep it the same way that the original in gameplay, like in gameplay I have my own stuff there, like the custom physics. If I keep it like that, it's not going to look as good as this, because the physics for the game are things for gameplay, not for the cutscenes. So a way to fix that was actually basically changing the values and make it like, for example, I reduced the gravity here. Instead of having like the high gravity, I reduce the damping of here, like the hair damping, the hair stiffness is lower, to basically have this more flowy thing going on with the wind. Because for this scene, I wanted to have like the wind and basically have the, you know, the physics different. And here, for example, the physics are different. I don't know why it's slower, but it's kind of slower. So basically, yeah, basically you can use the physics here to make it look much nicer. It's sad that it's a bit like a slow motion. I don't know why it's that. Well, things that happen in a stream, maybe it's because I'm sharing with Discord. I can fix that, so things that happen. But basically, ignore the slow frame rate, and you are seeing what I mean, basically. So that's a really cool thing that you can use in cinematics to make everything, to every shot, look absolutely like you want in terms of physics, and control everything like you want. For example, here I want to have like the gravity going down, because obviously here I want to have like the gravity going down because it looks better here. But here I prefer to have it like more like blowing in the wine. So I reduce the gravity, which is kind of fake, but it works. It really works. So yeah, this is how I deal with physics. And talking about cutscenes, I have another thing that I want to show you, more related to art, but yeah, I have another cutscene prepared here. Okay, it's a bit old, but it's interesting to see how I deal with cutscenes outside of what you see. Because one thing is what you see in the cutscene, and another thing is what I'm doing, which is interesting, that's for sure. Okay, so this cutscene, it's basically, okay, I'm gonna try to put it in the correct size. Probably it's not, but yeah, basically, this is the cutscene, right? You have this cutscene, right? It's a bit longer. Yeah, basically, it's a bit slower, but yeah, you get the point. You get the point. You get the point. So this is the cutscene, right? This is what the players see, obviously. But I want to show you this. I didn't show this anywhere, so this is quite interesting to see. I want to show how it looks everything outside from what you are seeing as a perspective, and the tricks I use to make everything look more smoother. So as you see here, in this part, you have these both characters, like one in other place. Like this is not correct in terms of the size of the screen, but let's ignore that. Basically, you have one character in here and the other here, and you have that balance, right? I wanted that basically, but obviously this doesn't help because they are really far away and the character is not moving that much. So basically, here we have the animation running, right? And here you are seeing something weird. Basically, what I do, it's when the character, I use this shot right here. I'm using this shot not in a specific way. I'm using this shot to hide something. And what I'm hiding, what I'm hiding is actually that this character is going to move a lot suddenly. Like, it's going to be like, boop. I want it to be closer, but then I used another method, basically. This here, this looks like the camera is rotating or something. That's fake. It's not rotating. Everything that you're seeing is actually fake. What I'm doing is actually moving the character, as you can see. I'm moving the character to that position, to the other position. So that way, I'm changing the axis of the camera, right? Because you can have that's a problem in a storyboard, or not a problem. That's something that you learn in a storyboard. You have one character in the right, another in the left. That's nice. What you can have is suddenly a change of axis. You can have suddenly a character in the left and one in the right, and suddenly the same character in the right and the other in the left. It's going to look like something is wrong. So you don't want to do that. So basically what I do is, yeah, I'm going to use this shot here to change the axis of the character. So now it's no longer in the left. Now it's in the right. Now we see it. And here I change to the shot, and now one is in the left and the other is in the right. The opposite. But you don't notice this sudden change because I'm using that transition right there. So the way I do it basically is move the character. Move the character by in a way that looks like, because the camera is rotating too. So it feels like everything is rotating, but it's fake. Everything is super fake. And then you have the last shot, and that's it. So I think that's pretty interesting to see how you can use like all of that. That's also the same reason why I don't animate things outside in terms of the movement. Like, I animate everything in Blender, but I don't animate at the root position in Blender for cutscenes. I do all of that in Unreal, right? You can see the position of everything. I animate the position in Unreal. That way I can have full control of the cutscene. I can have full control of what is going on, and I can change things quickly. So the position of the characters are always in place for the cutscenes, and I just play the different movements to achieve what I want. Because even if I have a scene planned in my head, it's really not a good workflow to put the cameras in Blender or in another program and then export it to Unreal. Not a good workflow, I assure you. I tried that. It's not good. It's better to have like the characters animated and then import everything and do the cuts in everything in Unreal with your camera in Unreal and move the camera in Unreal and everything. It's not a good idea to do all of that in Blender and then export it. I actually tried and I was breaking my head. So yeah, definitely this is really cool to actually do it inside Unreal. And as you can see, you can use a lot of these tricks to actually do all of that. And also, as you can see, in every shot, the lights are different. So in this shot, we have these lights. These shots, I deactivate these lights and I activate these lights. So I'm activating and deactivating lights in every shot. You're seeing that now appear more depending on that. So basically, they are not the same. Like even here, that it's like kind of like the same shot. It's not the same as this one because it's not the same dealing with a close-up that dealing with a long shot, right? So basically, I also move and animate these lights around. We have this, for example, this rim lighting here, and basically have all of that going on. So it's really important to, and Unreal has all of this that is really amazing. It's really easy to use. So in each shot, you can see that I'm actually modifying all these lights. I even modifying like the directional light. In some shots, I'm deactivating the skylight a bit. Even in some shots, I touch the post-process. For example, here you can see how the intensity of the bloom, it's much lower. And in other shots, I want to put up like the intensity of the bloom. So I even animated stuff from the post-processing things. I'm animating everything, not only like characters or light, but every small thing, because that's a way to achieve like a really nice cutscene. And I'm going to show you how this looks without, for example, the post-processing. If I deactivate the post-processing, this is how it looks. So the post-processing is actually helping to set the mood in a completely different way. So this looks, it doesn't look bad, but definitely this is giving another atmosphere, and it's giving another style. Same here, for example, it's not the same. You're actually getting like, yeah, you're actually seeing how everything looks better with all these things. Obviously, I'm actually touching almost everything, even like the midtones here. I'm touching everything. I liked a lot touching the post-processing and touching every small thing until I get the look I want. So I'm not gonna go ahead and show everything because there's like a lot of things. But definitely it's quite interesting to have all this stuff. Yeah, it's too much stuff, but it's amazing. You can have all this cool stuff animated and even animate things inside the sequencer. This is one of the best things of Unreal. It's having the post-processing, grabbing the post-processing and modifying that. You can do that with the camera too, I know, but I prefer to do it with the post-processing because that's my way of working. It depends in the end on each workflow, so you can overwrite everything in the camera that you are using. I know that, but I prefer to have it in the post-processing. I prefer to animate everything that way. I feel it more organized in my way. I don't really like to touch like things on the camera except for the blurring and the focus and all of that. It's the only thing I touch, or the the focal length and all of that. But yeah, it's really cool. I really like animating everything and the possibilities that the sequencer have, and exposing even like the booleans to, or the floats to cinematics. That's one of the base ideas, because as I say, I can actually control the physics of all of that thanks to that, right? So yeah, I think it's really amazing to have all these tools. And yeah, you have seen how you can also play a bit with the cutscenes and fake everything, but it looks good in camera. So that's the important thing. We fake everything, but it looks good in camera. That's the important thing. Yeah, I mean, I have more stuff too. Maybe I can show more stuff. Let me show, for example.
We've also
Yeah.
got some questions from chat if you want to just answer.
Yeah, I would
questions
like
for
to answer. I'm gonna just show one of the last things. Yes, so for people who are using, who want to incorporate Metahuman's workflow, it's just really quick. And I'm going to shut up now. Okay, so let me go ahead and show you something that I integrated really. It's something that I didn't show or something like that. It's something really new. Basically, what I want to show, it's well, as I say, I'm using Metahuman's textures and UVs and all of that. But the problem is I use Blender, and as you know, Blender don't have support in terms of exporting the Metahuman to Blender. I mean, you can export it, but the rigging, the face, you lose all of that, and you lose all of that in the process, which is sad, but it's what it is. You only can use Maya, and that's it. And it's amazing anyway, so if you are using Maya, go ahead and use the rigging of Metahumans. It's amazing. But if you are like me and you lose the rigging in the process, so basically what I do is I have the Metahuman, I have the UVs, I have the textures and everything. And then I basically I create a new rigging. This rigging is the 53 shakies that uses the Live Link face from Epic 2, which is amazing. It's a free app for iPhone. You just record your face and you have the motion capture thing going on. You just need the 53 shakies of iPhone, like the AR kit. You can find all of that information on Google. So basically I have that, and I was like, I like that, but I want to use also like the textures, the wrinkle textures of Metahumans. When they're closing the eyes, you have the wrinkles going on in the nose, all of that micro detail of the wrinkles. I really love that about Metahumans, and I was like, I really need to integrate this in my things, but obviously I don't use the rig of Metahumans, so this is a bit confusing. I need to find it. I actually did. I actually figured out. It was quite easy, not gonna lie. With the Metahumans, it's quite easy. So I'm gonna show my shader for the face real quick. Let me go ahead here. Okay. We're going to go to the normal here. So as you can see, this is pretty similar to Metahuman in a way. You have the 4 textures, like the normal main. Obviously, I want to say that even if I'm using textures from Metahumans, I'm editing them in Substance, obviously. I'm basically importing the textures, editing the textures in Substance to give it my style. Obviously, you are not going to get the same style that you want with Metahumans. Metahumans is more like, I can see the textures of Metahuman like, XYZ textures that are like the page where you can buy XYZ textures that are like basically scans of faces, but you need to pay for them basically. So you need to pay 20 euros for one texture. So I see like that, but free basically. You have Metahuman, you have the face, you have millions of faces, you have millions of textures. You just grab the textures, combine them. You can even combine them because they are using the same UV. It's amazing. You don't need to even project the texture. It's godly. It's amazing. So basically, I'm using also the textures from Metahuman, edited a bit, just a bit of a edit, but nothing big in terms of the wrinkles. So I have these four. This is the main, the three ones, and then I also have the micro normal of Metahumans too. It's amazing. And basically, in the animated maps, if you are using 53 like the 53 shape keys method, you just need to go ahead and enter in these notes here, and basically go ahead and change like the naming of these ones. You're going to find something like this: head, WW, M1 normal head, whatever. this longest name that it's for the Metahuman rig. You just grab that and change it for the 53 shape keys, like A blank left, A blank right, blah blah blah. Change that for the three of them. Super easy. You don't need to change the mask because remember, we are using the UVs of Metahumans. So why would you change the mask? You don't need to do it. So you do it for the three of them. And basically, once you do that, if I simulate, I have a really bad animation, but it's going to show. Oops.
It'll get the point across, right?
let me reduce again the speed because yeah, I want to basically go ahead and I want to get closer to that. Well, yeah, this will work, I guess. You can see how the wrinkles are appearing in the face right there. Even if I disable the hair, because well, we have this hair that it's occluding everything. So there is a method for all the characters, which is cool because using this method with Metahumans, I can basically adapt all of these methods to all my characters. So you don't need to work more because you have the textures already. So yeah, you can see how the wrinkles are appearing everywhere, like in the nose, in here. It's so really nice, and it's just grabbing the texture from Metahumans, adapting it to your own rig. And even if you're not using the rig from Metahumans, you can use all of that in the shader. You just grab it from the shader, put it in your own shader, and that's it. Fix it. Really easy. It's amazing. So yeah, it's something that I really like, all these tools from Metahumans and things like that. And even if it's what I'm saying, even if your game is not like realistic Metahuman style, like super realistic, you can integrate all of that in your own game. You just need to find a way. But it's totally possible. I recommend using to everyone these tools because it's really amazing. Even for the topology, just for the topology and the level of details, it's just great. Just for the UVs. The UVs of Metahumans are one of the most amazing things that I've seen. Like I actually, obviously, when Metahumans wasn't around, I was actually doing my own UV faces, right? And I was trying to make everything as planar as possible. And it looked wrong. It looked really bad. And I was trying to make everything like good, but yeah, it wasn't good. It wasn't good. So with Metahumans, it's just look and play. You drop the face to Metahuman, put some small things, small dots in there, and then you have everything. UVs. If you have Maya, you even have the rigging. So if you use Maya, you have everything. You don't even need to do the rigging. So it's crazy for sure. Yeah, that's I think this most. I have more stuff, but we can show it later. I want to see some questions or whatever, and yeah, I think we have time later. We can show some more minor stuff, but yeah.
Absolutely. I would love to.
Yeah,
I was even just seeing the face on like the material sphere is kind of nightmare fuel. So it's character UVs are my favorite thing to see ever because they're horrifying.
Yeah, the face, yeah.
Yeah. You know, they're never pretty, but they get the job done.
No, and the texture, and when you see the texture there with the lips super big and everything, oh my god,
horrifying, absolutely nightmare fuel. All right, I've got a couple questions lined up from chat here for you. I figure we could probably do almost like rapid fire through them, so we can try and fit in some more of your interesting stuff at the end here as well. Want to make sure we have plenty of time for all that. The first one here is from IDGI. I don't know if you want me to actually pronounce it as Idgi, but I spelt it, so here we are. They're wondering, what are some of the ways you've managed to create so much content from, you know, the environments to characters, animations, all of that, just by yourself in a year?
Yeah. Well, as I said, like the characters, when I started the first time, I was doing characters like from scratch completely, like from the textures. I was actually painting the textures. I wasn't even using XYZ textures. I was actually painting the faces myself. Yeah, it's some of my teachers were like, "You're actually painting the faces," and I was like, "Yeah, yeah, actually putting like the pores and everything." Like, and he was like, "Yeah, this is crazy." So at the start, I was doing that, but obviously, I noticed that I was taking too long. Like, if you have like in my case, I have 29 main characters. And if we're talking about NPCs, we don't want to talk about that because the number is just too high. We don't want to talk about NPCs. So I've noticed that obviously I wasn't going to finish this if I was using these methods. So as I say, metahumans is the way to go for me. Mesh to metahumans for my faces, the style, import it, and then once you have the style in there, because that's the trick. Once you have like 10 faces, you can actually combine the faces and create new metahumans from that faces with the tools of metahumans, and it will keep your style. Obviously, I'm going to say it looks bad inside the metahuman editor because it's not prepared for that. But trust the process. Obviously, the eyes are big, and therefore it looks like the iris is limited to 1 in the metahuman editor. So obviously, the iris looks like this, and the eyes looks like this, and it's like, what is going on? It looks bad. You need to trust the process. Obviously, the textures are not going to look as you want, but the important thing is that you are keeping all that super nice detail of the bump, the normal, and all of that. So I will say trust the process, then grab the textures, import them in Substance, and then use more faces. Like combine once you have the style done in Metahuman, yes, you can combine faces. Sculpt a bit in Metahumans. You don't need to recreate new faces because once you have 10, 20, that's it. It's pretty easy. Even with 3, I just imported, like, if I remember correctly, 5 NPC faces, and then I created 300. It's like crazy. Obviously not that much because I don't want to have that many faces, but you get the point. You can create 300 if you want. It's not complicated. It's actually easy. So that's how I do it. So obviously we're talking about clothes. There's no really like easy way to do clothes. Like, yeah, I mean, you have Marvelous. Marvelous is amazing, but you need to do the clothes anyways. You need to actually do the clothes and model the clothes, then do the topology. There is no way to avoid that process, at least for now. And obviously, if you want, you have the metahuman clothes, or you have packs on the internet. But if you want something specific, obviously you need to do it, and it's what it is. There is no. You can buy packs, or you can, for example, there are some amazing packs, for example, in Art Station about, like, if you, for example, want to buy like metal pieces, right? You imagine that you don't want to model 30 metal pieces. You can grab a pack of metal pieces and just plug and play, like kit bashing, basically. You grab the metal piece, connect it with that, just to go faster, because if not, you're going to need to design that, find reference for that. That's a way of going fast about clothes. I use that a lot for NPCs. Like, sometimes I have like a full Blender file, sometimes with my own stuff, and sometimes with other stuff that I buy for €3. 3 euros, boom. A lot of metal pieces, and just connect all these metal pieces together and all this stuff. So kit bashing is a good way also to go faster, even if you need to edit it, optimize it. It's a good way. I would recommend, like, find some kit bashing packs and try to combine things. That's a really cool thing. But sometimes you can do nothing. Like, if we're talking about modeling, like the city of Shibuya, for example, that it's a replica of the real city of Japan, well, there is no. You just need to model it. There's no there is no way to avoid it. I actually spent a lot of time modeling that because I wanted to be like super close to the real place. And there is no way. There are ways. For example, you can grab like Google Map data to obtain the scales of the buildings, the latitude of the street, all of that. Even there is a place, if you want to model any place of Japan, if someone is interested, there is a page of the Japan government that it's free. that it's called Plateau Project, basically, and it's a place where you can download as FBX entire files of a city, just blocking. Obviously, it's like block, it's square, low poly, but you have all the entire scale and everything in there, so you don't need to go ahead and try to find that in Google Maps in a way that it's kind of difficult. So if you're interested into that, you can find those places and model, but you will need to model it. You will need to do the high poly things. You will need to, if you want to do procedural, then you need to go to Houdini. You need to work it anyway, right? So there are some parts that obviously with kit bashing, with some assets that you can find, combining things, maybe there are ways to actually go faster, but sometimes there's no way. You just need to work. I actually work a lot in this game, so for people to actually understand, I actually work like a lot of hours every day. So that's the main reason why in a year I could do this, because it's not something that I take like every week or something. No, it's every day. Even if I go to uni and stuff like that, I usually go to uni and I have my computer in the uni and I keep working on the game in my laptop. So even if it's slower, I keep working the game in the uni. I'm listening, but I'm working. I do multitasking basically. That's the only way I can achieve this, even if I go to uni, right? So yeah, I don't think there is like a real, and especially with animation. If we're talking about animation, yeah, sorry, first of all, it's something that I hate, even if I do good animations. It's not something that I like, and I have friends that they like it. I have one of my best friends, even Stephen from Sort of Symphony. He likes doing animations, and I'm like, you are crazy. I don't like this thing, but he likes it a lot. He likes to animate the stuff. It depends on the person. I don't really enjoy animating. It's a process that you can't do anything. Like it's you need to animate and you need to animate. There is no way to skip that part. There's no skipping. There's just animating all the time, and that's it. So yeah, if you want to animate, well, prepare for animating a lot. There is no way. I just open Blender and stay there for a week. I can actually show how I do my workflow for animations later. I can share my screen in Blender, so if people are interested into that. But yeah, there's no trick in that. There are tricks in modeling. There are a lot of tricks, but if we are talking about animating, no, there are no tricks in there. It's just it just takes time, and when you get good, you are faster. But yeah, if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to enjoy it. I don't enjoy it.
There's not really that many shortcuts, yeah. Next question we've got from Logan Pinney, and they're wondering if you used both C++ and Blueprints, or if it was just Blueprints.
Yeah, I most of the project is built in Blueprints. That's the important thing to say. But there is C++ code, especially for optimizing some things. But I will say, if I need to say percentages, obviously this is not exact, so don't take this with a grain of salt. Basically, I will say 80-85% is Blueprints, and the rest is C++. Obviously, I'm not taking into account the plugins, because if we talk about the AI Mass plugin, that's C++, for example. So the plugins are C++ sometimes, so probably it's more than that. So there is it's an hybrid, that's for sure. You have Blueprints and C++. I will say that's the best thing, because you can combine both and create part of the code in C++, then call it as a blueprint. So you have a lot, but most of the stuff, if we talk about movement, we talk about combat, if we talk about that, I do all of that in Blueprints. I find it easier, and I don't think there's a lot of optimizing in that way, because there are no event ticks normally. There is nothing to optimize. It's just more messy. But well, I prefer like the spaghetti notes. It's the way I like it. I prefer that.
Yeah, I'm an Italian, so I have to have a bias towards the spaghetti noodles. This is just how it goes. Next question we have is from Nathan Pond, and they're wondering how difficult it was to implement the flight system that you have.
The what system?
The flight system.
Oh, the flight system. Well, it's actually not that complicated. It's the only system. Well, it's not the only system that doesn't use. Most of the systems, I didn't mention this, use root motion. My game is not multiplayer, and I'm not planning to make it multiplayer. too much work for me. So not gonna happen. So it's single player. So I'm using root motion. I feel like that makes like the animations look better with root motion, obviously, because I have control of that in Blender. So yeah, I'm using root motion except for cutscenes again, because of what I explained in the other, like the cutscene method that I use. But yeah, in terms of the character, I use root motion, except obviously when the character is in the air, I don't use root motion. When you use a grappling hook, and obviously in the flying system, I don't use root motion. So in terms of animations, it's quite easy. It's just some animations with additive in there. You just have one animation, or 2 or 3 animations, and a lot of additive animations on top of that, just to, you know, the direction of that is not that complex. There are also animations for dodging and for speeding up or reducing the velocity or hovering. But again, it's probably are the easiest animations. If we're talking about animations, flying animations are the easiest ones, for me at least, compared to combat or walking or running and all of that. That's crazy. So in terms of that, yeah, animation is easy. And in terms of blueprints, it's not that hard either, because you have the flying. You already have the flying thing in Real. Like you have literally a movement called flying. So you just need to touch the flying and make it better in terms of having different speeds and all of that. But it's not really complicated in terms of blueprints. I would say it's quite easy. It's just some blueprints for detecting when you are hovering and when you are sprinting or when you are normal flying, and then the dash or the dodges is the same as a dash in when you're walking. It's the same thing. You just call the animation and you do the dash wherever you want to go. And yeah, it's not that complex. It's pretty simple, I would say. What I think what sells the system is actually the animations or how everything blends together. In terms of a system, yeah, well, the camera maybe changes, but the camera is changing all the time. Like when you're walking, it's different when you're running, when you're attacking. It's a pretty dynamic camera. So I will say, yeah, what it sells the system is more like the animations to me, or maybe the VFX and the sounds. Yeah, kind of like that. But as coding, that's probably one of the easiest systems. Actually, it was harder to figure out like the change direction system when the character changed direction with root motion. That was actually harder to figure out than the flying system. I spent like a long time trying to understand why it wasn't rotating correctly or why it was snapping to the place. I was like, what is going on? So that was actually harder for me. Yeah.
It feels like it's the small things that are always the most difficult to perfect.
Yeah, for sure. It was crazy to me seeing like how something as simple as that was like so complicated. I don't know.
They sneak up on you. They really do.
Yeah.
The next question we've got here is from Sparky McSparks, and they're wondering, I know we saw a little bit of this in the kind of overtime video that you showed us at the beginning, but what did testing during development look like, especially with all the interactions and features of a big world? Did you specifically have smaller levels that you did all of your testing in, or did you often do stuff in the full environments once they were built?
Yeah, I mean, my process when it comes to cities, when it comes to big cities, I have 2 type of maps. One of them is called, the name of the map, optimization. That map is basically a smaller map that I use that it's not finished, but I start adding the assets optimized, because when I import the first time my assets of the city, they are not optimized. They are like just they doesn't have level of details. The materials are all over the place. It's wrong because I import from Blender, but I'm just testing. I want to see how it feels, how it looks, because obviously I do. The problem with my cities is that with the verticality, and they are so complex in terms of structure, that I can't do them in terms of in real with modular assets. It will be impossible. So I need to build it in Blender. And the problem with that is that it's really hard to test if that is working correctly as a place for gameplay. I mean, it looks good, but it works for gameplay. So obviously, when I finish the city or when I process in city, I import the whole city to Unreal, and that's not optimized. but I do it more for testing and for seeing how it works for the lighting, how everything works. When I finish that process, I start creating a new map. When I start importing each asset separately, like each building, the smaller assets, I start positioning everything correctly, and I do the boring stuff basically that it's optimizing all the whole city. So I use another map for that. So I have two maps at the same time. And another times I create another map for testing new things for the lighting, for new methods, just to see how everything works. Sometimes I even have a map to test how it works with the Unreal mannequin and compare it to my character to see if the performance is similar, if I did something wrong, just to test, right? So I do a lot of this small testing in different maps. But if we're testing mechanics and things like this, most of the time, it's just a big area that I have with all necessary there. Like I have like everything is messy, but it's everything is there, so it's just for testing. So if I want to test the bike, it's just I sculpt some mountains in the terrain, and I just drive the mountain there. So it's drive the bike there. So basically, for testing mechanics for the first time, yeah, I have a map for that, and then I start testing everything in the other maps. Yeah, that's how it works. And in terms of cities, well, yeah, what I say. Yeah, it's a lot of different processes and things like that. I have tons of map, even for cutscenes, and even versions of the same map. I have like version 1, version 2, version 3, version 4, because if I want to return to another version, because I do a lot of changes, I always want to have those versions. That's why my project size is also quite big. Right now it's like 200 gigabytes, something like that. It's crazy because I have too many maps and too many things. But I don't want. If I want to come back to something, I want to come back to something. I just don't want to, make a change and that's it.
Yeah.
It's what it is. Yeah.
I mean, that's just an unfortunate part of development is having to test things over and over and over.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Let's see. Oh, well, we just answered that question with that answer. Look at this. It's a 2-for-1 already. Ricochet Frame is wondering, they are a current game design student, and they're wondering what resources you would recommend if they want to kind of learn more than just what they're getting in their degree.
Yeah, I mean, I would say most of the things that I've learned in game development, or even the things that I've learned in 3D stuff, I found most of that stuff for free on YouTube. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't do any courses or something like that. There are some good courses out there for sure. You need to pay for them, but there are a lot of good, interesting stuff. But I think you can learn most of the stuff in YouTube and just read forums, and especially like if you're following a tutorial, try to do something different. Don't follow the tutorial just for following the tutorial. If you more like have a clear idea of what you want to do and then use tutorials to build that idea instead of following a tutorial or a series of tutorials. Because if you do that, you're not going to learn anything. You are just going to finish something, but it's not going to be an entirely like learning process. It's more like, I want to do this mechanic. How? Well, let's find some video. This video doesn't help. Well, maybe I can find a minute in this video that helps. Let's see the video. You watch the video, then you finish, then you go to a forum, then you go to another place. So it's more like that. But I don't have any especially like resources about everything. Like if you want to find something, I will say Unreal forums helps a lot. I visited Unreal forums a lot when I was especially searching for really complex stuff that it's nobody does, like this destruction of the buildings and all of that. So yeah, most of the stuff is like I actually go to the forum and try to find information, and then YouTube videos just to try to find something. But I will say, yeah, just experiment. When I want to do something, I always experiment. Like if I want to do, for example, for the physics, I didn't ask anyone what was the best physics I could use. I was like, okay, I'm gonna test all the physics in the engine, all the physics that I can find, like the physics inside the engine, like the plugins, everything. And then I come up with the final decision until testing all of them in a stress test and everything. And I was like, okay, I think this is the best for me. So I will say, not always listen to people because they don't know your project. So if you're doing something and if you want to learn something specifically, try it yourself and obviously listen to feedback, but try it yourself first. Try everything yourself. Try to understand why everything is. Do it yourself. Don't try to search for a test in YouTube, because that test maybe it's wrong. Who knows? Maybe they did it wrong. So just do a test yourself. Just do it you, and see how everything works, and compare it yourself. I think the best way of learning is basically trying things in engine. And also, obviously, you have all the Unreal resources. For example, my hair shader comes from the Digital Humans, the project from Digital Humans, just modify it a bit and combine it with some things with the Metahumans hair shader. It was a combination of both, and added some of my own stuff. So for sure, just take stuff and find information, or use the Unreal projects that you have, like the Epic projects that are for free, and just try to find all these files and experiment with them, and probably you will learn a lot that way. It's the best way to learn, like trying and trying and trying. But I wouldn't recommend any sources, because I didn't find anything. Like most of the stuff I actually just learned it by myself. There are some good tutorials anyways. I found some good tutorials when I was trying to make some mechanics, for sure. So I'm not saying no, don't watch tutorials, but also try things yourself. Not only our tutorials.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic advice, honestly. The next question up is, I'm gonna paraphrase a little bit, because I've seen a few people ask kind of multiple versions of the same thing, but they're wondering, did you model and texture pretty much everything yourself, or did you use any packs or things like that?
It depends on a lot of things. I will say, for example, if we talk about main characters, yeah, everything is as I'm saying, yes and no, because I'm using also the Metahumans textures, so that doesn't count. Even if I started doing my own textures, I grab those textures, I modify them, but I have the base, right? But in the end, it's also like using XYZ textures, so it's something that 3D artists has been using for years. And I think almost no one does in a project does things from scratch. Not even companies. They just grab stuff that works and modify it. Is the way to go. But I will say that, yeah, for example, if we talk about Shibuya, that, as I'm saying, the city, it's completely modeled for me. I needed to model. Even I created most of the textures because I needed like the ground texture, and you can find the ground texture on the internet. You can put Shibuya ground texture 1. You're not going to find anything, obviously. So I decided to do my own textures in Substance Designer and things like this. So it depends. But then if I find something that works, like packs from Kitbash or whatever, and can combine it with my own workflows and with my own things, and then modify mobile Kitbashing things together until I get something. So if I can do that, I will do it. Like, it depends on the city. It depends on the things that I want. Definitely, I want to do something that it's unique, right? So I'm trying to grab things and combine it in a way that you don't usually see. So even if I'm using packs or things like this, I change everything. Like, I change the modem, I change the textures, I change the placement of everything. So I wouldn't grab a pack and just drop everything in there. It's finished. No, it's more like that. But there are things like I need to model, like the bosses. I was modeled from scratch, texture from scratch, enemies, NPCs. Like sometimes if I find like a good pack of hairs, like of hairstyles that I can combine and change the hairstyles, like kit bashing hair, that's really cool. For NPCs, that's really cool. If you have 300 NPCs and you can just modify a lot of hairs and all of that, if I find a pack that is good, I will use it. Again, I will modify it because these packs are from other artists and they have their own workflows, so I need to adapt it to my workflow. So maybe I will change the whole textures, but the haircuts are there, for example. So if I buy a pack with hairs, that's cool, but then I just need to change the textures, change the shaders, and do it myself. Like, maybe add more haircuts, adapt it to my own style. So it's a process. If I find something that I can use, definitely I will buy it, as I say, for kit bashing, for things like this, especially to go faster. But if we are talking about something more main in the game, like characters or something like that, I usually do it from scratch because that's something I have in my mind, and it's not something so secondary. So it depends a lot in the context. It's more, I can model it from scratch, yeah, but it's more like if it already exists, why I will model it? If it already exists, why I can just grab it and modify it a bit? If I can do that, absolutely. But yeah. But in the end, if you want to do this, I recommend adapting everything to your own stuff, because if not, you're going to end up with the stuff that it's basically different methods, different things. Like you have, imagine that you have a pack of VFX, but you have Niagara particles, then you have the Cascade particles, then you have this other thing. It's like, it's messy. It's like, obviously, I'm not saying it's bad. It's just, it's better to have everything unified in a way. So for example, same with shaders. I like to have a master shader, and all of the other shaders are instances of one shader, for example, for the buildings and for the cities. All of them are just one shader. So I like to keep everything in my own way, my own method, my own thing. So even if I use packs or whatever, yeah, I usually need to modify everything to make it my own. Therefore, but I don't usually use stuff from the marketplace. I use stuff more related to artists. I don't like to use like super pre-made stuff. I like to use more like stuff made by artists for artists, right? Like imagine a pack for things like for ZBrush or something like that. I don't use ZBrush, but I can add those masks and all those stuff into Blender, so I can sculpt it in Blender anyway. So I like to use stuff made by someone who lost their time doing that thing for someone who can use it and make cooler models. So definitely I use stuff, but it's more like a something made by artists that you need to adapt to your own workflows. That's what I like.
Yeah, for sure. The next question here is from GM, and they're wondering, how long did it take you to learn the tools that you've used, like Houdini and Blender, for example?
Yeah, I mean, Houdini, it's on another level. Houdini is one of the programs that it's probably the most confusing to learn and the most amazing one, and the harder to learn. Probably it's one of the it's really hard to learn Houdini. But it's a program that it's so amazing, and it's also really connected to Unreal in a lot of ways. So it's I will say that it's interesting to learn it for sure, but it's going to be hard. Blender, on the other hand, I mean, I'm not gonna say it's easy because it's not, but it's easier than Houdini, that's for sure. And I've been using Blender, as I say, for 4 years now. So I obviously had a lot of experience with this program. I will say that just with 1 year, I already had, even just with 6 months, I had a lot of understanding of everything. Obviously, Blender is kind of like a program where you have a lot of things in the same program, like texturing, shading, and you have modeling, you have sculpting, you have like even physics. So learning out of all of it is going to take more, for sure. It's going to take like 1 or 2 years, I will say, depending on your speed. But if you want to learn all the program, yeah, and in Houdini you are not going to learn all the program. Even if you try, yeah, it's on another level. There are a lot of stuff that is hidden. So yeah, I will say Houdini. I don't have like the full grasp of Houdini. It's just I know how to do the stuff, but I wouldn't call me an expert of Houdini. I just know how to do stuff to connect it to Unreal. But definitely, I'm not an expert of Houdini. So I'm still learning. I'm always in the process of learning. And even Blender is releasing new tools every day, literally every day. So I'm always learning. It's a process that you're always learning. Same with Unreal. Unreal is always launching new tools, new stuff. So I will say you're always learning stuff all the time. It's something that you never stop. You always need to be updated. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. How do you tackle sound and sound design for the game?
Yeah, I do that myself, except for the music. The music is made by a composer. And well, the way we handle music, what he does basically, for example, for music is he separates the music into layers. And then I have my own custom system of music that it runs with layers. I didn't show this because obviously this is more related to sound and all of that. So I basically have all this layer system for music that it's dependent on the gameplay. So for example, when you're entering a zone, maybe you have the percussions or the violins or the piano. And maybe when you exit that zone, it's just the voice or something like that. Or maybe you add the voice when you get closer to someone singing in the town. And when you are far away, the voice of the song is not there anymore. Same with the combat, more instruments add along with the combat, and same with the bosses too. So the music is completely dynamic, and I have my own system for that. It's quite complex. It's one of the it's a really complex system. But the way we do it now, it's quite easy. I just say, "Hey Kevin," that is the name of the composer. Send me layers, like 7 layers, and he sent me the 7 layers, and I just import it to Unreal, and I have the 7 layers, and that's it. And in terms of sound, I do it myself. Normally, I could record it myself, but normally what I do, if I find some free sounds, I just basically modify them and I things on top. So basically, grab some things and I start adding on top more stuff in a program for editing audio. Basically, you can use whatever you want. You can use even Audacity if you want. But yeah, basically you just layer on top things in each part of the audio until you get something that you want. So I don't use like completely pre-made sounds because obviously some things are super specific. But if I can find something that works, I just convert it, similar to how I do other things in but yeah, sometimes I even record the stuff myself. But that's just some strange occasions. And how I mix everything in the game is just like mixing something in a video program. I actually have some knowledge about mixing and all of that. So it's something that I basically learn with process. Like it's just a learning process. I've been editing videos and editing stuff since 7 years ago or something like that. I've been doing things like this from 7 years ago. So I actually have knowledge, man, because I've been doing audio design and all of that from a long time ago. So I will say, yeah, for now I'm doing it myself, and I don't know if I will hire someone in the future for the audio. It will depend if I really need it, but for now it's working quite nicely. So yeah.
Nice. Good to hear.
Yeah.
And then I think this will be the last question I taken from chat, just so that I'm not holding you hostage on stream for several more hours at a time. But this one, how do you keep your creative and visual elements consistent, especially with the narrative that you're wanting to tell?
Well, that's an interesting question. I will say that it's not really hard. I mean, I have a clear idea of what I want to do, and I have a clear idea of what, in my head at least. That's the thing. For people who ask if I do a storyboard or something like that, no, I don't do a storyboard, and no, I don't do concept art. Nothing. I don't draw anything. I can draw, but I don't draw. It's just something. Yeah, it's my way of working. Again, that's the same reason why I don't work correctly in groups. I can, but I'm slower. That's what I was talking about. It's like, so obviously what I'm doing is not the normal thing to do. So basically, when I'm doing something, I have the clear idea in my head. I have something exactly how I want in my head. I know how the characters moves, and I actually act my character. Sometimes I use I actually have a motion capture suite from Rococo, right? And I use that for cutscenes, not for gameplay because I want to animate the gameplay completely, but for cutscenes I like to use the Rococo suite. So I'm acting most of these characters that you are seeing in cutscenes actually. So I know exactly where is the cameras in my head. I know exactly the camera is recording me while I'm doing the animation, while I'm recording myself in the Rococo suite, right? So I have a clear idea of everything. Same with the lighting, same with obviously these things changes later. When I see if something is not working, I'm saying, okay, this looked better in my head. I'm gonna try something different. But most of the time I have something super clear in my head, so I can actually go ahead and I don't really need to unify anything because I actually unified everything like long time ago. When I started the project with the story, everything was unified, and I was like, okay, I need to work. Obviously, people have seen that there are a lot of different places, like the cities are completely different from each other. The colors of palettes in every part is completely different. There are characters that seem from another game because they're wearing completely opposite clothes, like different. It kind of seems like it's a different, even like age or something. It doesn't feel like you're seeing modern Shibuya, then you're seeing a cyberpunk area, and then you're seeing a steampunk area, a Victorian area. You are like, how is this going to combine into one game in a logical way? Well, when I was having the idea, I was like, I want to make a game with all these different things where you are playing and every time the game is changing. And you can also see that in the bosses. The bosses, each one of them is completely different. The atmosphere of every boss is completely different. I want to make everything quite unique in that sense. So I wanted to have a game where everything is changing constantly. But I can explain everything with the story, because the first thing that I created was the story. It wasn't a game that was like, okay, I'm going to do a game just for fun and then I'm going to make the story. No, the story was already written and was already finished. There has been some changes, obviously, with all these 2 years. Obviously, I've been some changes, but the story was there, and I knew exactly how to explain all these weird things going on in the story in a logical way, and in a way that makes sense. So it's more like, yeah, I'm just trying to explain why there are so many different things going on, but it makes sense. So I don't need to unify anything, or at least not now, because I already did that long time ago. So it's not a problem anymore. It's more like, I would recommend having a clear idea of what you have, a clear idea of your story, a clear idea of what you want to do, and don't add something if you don't have an idea of what you want to do with that. Because most of the time, that's something that people may think, that they see my game and they see the Twitter updates, and each update look different. Like, each update looks completely different. They're like, what is this game? And what is this game about? Because we have a bike, and then we are flying, and then we have this big boss destroying everything. But how is this connecting everything? Obviously, that's already written. All of that is already explained in a whole document. It's actually, when I say it's written, I'm saying that it's written from the dialogues to the explanation to everything. It's already every chapter of the game is already written. The whole dialogues for every chapter are already written. Even NPC stuff, relationships, all of that is being written right now. So a lot of the stuff is almost finished, if we are talking about story. So I don't need to unify anything now. It was more a process of suffering when I was starting, but right now it's right now it's yeah, it was a process of suffering, but not right now. Right now it's more like, okay, now I need to do all of that I explained here. Now I need to do that boss. How I do it? How no? That's the thing. So yeah, but
Right.
most of the stuff is in my head, and so that's why the same reason why I don't do concepts, not a storyboard, nothing like that. I just open the program, start creating shapes there until I get something I like, and then I just like, okay, it's working, I continue. Same with the textures. I don't have exactly a color palette that I want. It's more like I have some colors in my head, and then I start adding textures on top and just experiment with that. I actually have a video, an old video in my Instagram of my process of texturing. If someone wants to see, just go to my Instagram, it's there. And it's a process of me texturing from start to finish. It's a super fast video. It's just, a speed up video, but it's basically, you can see the whole process, and you can see how I'm actually changing the colors. Like, it was green, then it's red, and I'm testing things while I'm doing everything. So yeah, it's all on my head, definitely.
My gosh. I would constantly forget what was supposed to happen if that was me. So I'm impressed.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
think most people is like that.
Well, yeah. All
To be
right.
honest.
Well, there's definitely more questions that people did have, but again, I don't want to hold
Yeah.
you on stream for too much longer. So, if anyone has questions or want to follow along with the game's development, where can they find you? Where can they do so?
Well, if you want, you just check the game and keep the updates. Just, you can go to basically Twitter, even in TikTok I post stuff, or Instagram. So I will say, if you want, you just follow the game and that's it. Just go to my socials. But if you want to ask questions, you can enter in my Discord, and I actually have a question and answers channel, and that channel is basically for the game and for questions related to the engine or my workflows or whatever. It's not only limited to the actual game or ideas. It's just related to the whole me, basically. So if you have questions, definitely you can enter in my Discord and just ask questions there. It's super easy. I will say that's the best way. But if you want, you just keep the updates and keep following. I also post updates on Discord. It's just, Discord is more like a community, so that way I can ask questions, talk more up with the people and everything. But if you want to just follow updates, yeah, just Twitter or whatever social network I have, I usually post updates on all of them. So for sure.
Awesome. All right. We are going to be dropping all of those links in chat right now. So if you want to join in on any of those, please feel free to go and check out Ace and all of the incredible things that he has been doing and will continue to do, I'm sure. But I want to, first of all, thank you so much for just taking the time to be here and to chat with us and go through your game and all of these wonderful things that you've learned and sharing those tips and tricks basically with
Yeah.
the rest of the community, and also just giving us your story, which is incredibly inspiring. So thank you so much for being here and doing this.
No, thanks to you. It was an awesome experience. I really like being here. So yeah, it's awesome. I didn't expect this, so I'm really grateful for this whole situation.
Of
So,
course.
thanks to
And
you.
now you'll just have to come back again in the future when the game is done, and we'll just play through your game together, right?
For sure, I will be down for that. I will like
Yes.
that. I will love that.
Awesome. I'm gonna hold you to it. But yeah, so also thank you everyone who came and watched. The show wouldn't be what it is without you and your interactions and you asking questions and just being here and hanging out. So I also appreciate all of you being here and having a good time. The stream is what it is because of all y'all. So thank you also for being here. If you missed any other part of the stream today, don't worry, we post all of our streams in video format that can be viewed on demand on both our Twitch and YouTube channel at Unreal Engine. You can also follow us on all socials at Unreal Engine as well. And please come say hi in the forums. Come join us. Come be part of the community. You can ask questions, get all the latest news, and meet other like-minded developers like yourself as well. So come hang out, come join us. It's a good time there, I promise. I'm there sometimes too. It's a good time all around. But we have another stream tomorrow. We have another episode of UELFG. We'll have on the developers of Ghosts of Tabor, which is very similar to an extraction-based like survival game, kind of like Escape from Tarkov, except this one's in VR, which I didn't think extraction games needed to be any more intense, but apparently they can be. So come hang out tomorrow for that as well. And other than that, I'll see all y'all later. And one last big thank you to Ace. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks to you.
Bye everyone.
Bye everyone.